In this episode, I'm joined by Thimothy, co-founder of OneIMS. We talk about his 20-year journey in digital marketing, what it takes to build and scale a B2B agency, and why problem solving is the most essential skill for entrepreneurs and business leaders. Let's get into the show. Sam, welcome.
Yeah, it's appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And as I promised, I will jump right into questions. Can you share a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do, and about your company?
Yeah, I'm Samuel Timothy, the Chief Growth Officer for OneIMS. We're a digital marketing agency primarily focused on the B2B sector. Our customers tend to fall in industrial manufacturing, technology and SaaS, and professional services. So those are kind of the sectors where our customers fall. We're more of a growth agency that has a technology arm, so helping them select and implement sales and marketing tools and then help optimize it for revenue generation for their organizations.
Cool. So, what inspired you to start your company, or like, and where you are and your current role? So, like, just learn about more
Yeah.
about the journey.
It did not happen overnight. We're actually celebrating our 20th year anniversary. We've been at this for 20 years, correct? The
Congrats.
six, yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate that. 2006, my brother and I started this organization. Primarily was a creative shop focused on branding, creative design for companies that are just trying to get online at the time. And that was kind of the genesis of our organization. But then gradually that led to people asking, hey, you built us a beautiful website, but it doesn't generate any business. So that was like a common theme that we saw coming from our prospective and existing customers. And then that led us to researching like, well, how do we help these companies generate business from a website? And that led us to the early days of Google Ads. And then we started hiring internal team members that can help drive traffic. And those were very, very easy days to run Google Ads for very low cost. And then we would get the common feedback like, hey, we are starting to get inquiries, but we have no way to verify what you're doing is what drove us that business. That led us on another journey to try to figure out how do we actually measure success. So we kind of got gobbled together a bunch of different third party tools to track, measure performance metrics like traffic, conversions, calls, form submissions, all of those things, which led us to build our own little tech stack that we call Clickx. And that went through a bunch of evolution over the years. But overall, it was just solving for the customers' questions and problems is what led us to where we are today. So even through that exercise, we were serving a whole lot of different companies, but then we just really found a real niche need that we saw, which was mostly B2B organization have struggle with having consistent flow of predictable revenue. A lot of times they depend heavily on just sales organizations, meaning internal salespeople that do a lot of sales, or they have some level of marketing, but is mostly branding is what they call marketing, but not necessarily leveraging a digital strategy to drive in consistent inbound leads. So that became kind of our mission on how do we solve for it. So that led us to building our own frameworks, methodologies, and tested and proven it over the last 20 years.
Oh, that's amazing. I do want to follow up on working with your brother portion, but before that, you briefly mentioned about some of the pain points on your clients. So, what do you see as the most common pain points you see from the clients struggling with, and how do you help you? And what's your competitive advantage against
Yeah.
your competitor?
So most people say we just need more leads. If we had more leads, if more people knew that we existed, we would have no struggle of hitting our revenue targets, right? So that's just a common thing that I hear when they say if only more people knew that we existed. It's what they're describing is the lack of awareness. Most businesses have a lack of awareness problem. It's not their product problem. It's not right. Most of these companies have been around maybe quite some time. They've proven that they have a good product. They've proven that they have good process to make the product. They have pretty, decent pricing structure, and all of those things are probably kind of been figured out. Many times they haven't figured out how to get their name out, how to get more people to know that they exist. So the awareness is the biggest challenge that we see most organizations have. And you see tech companies come to market and pretty fast that you hear about them because they have figured out how to get distribution for their product, how to get more eyeballs to see their solution offering, right? That's how some of these companies just fast, rapid growth. And if most organizations, especially in the B2B sector that are just, they're founder-led organizations in the early days, they figured out how to sell and they kind of grown organically and have never really had to spend the time thinking like, how do we get our name in front of our prospective customers? How do we become more almost like a go-to solution in our category, they don't necessarily sit there and thinking it for it. So that's the biggest weakness we saw, and we were trying to solve for that lack of awareness problem.
Oh, that's amazing. And I do have to ask, how is it working? I mean, obviously, you guys worked together for 20, probably more than 20 years.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like, I know if either you complement each other so well or it's really hard to work with. But how has it been with you and your brother working together?
Yeah, I think complementary is the best way to look at it because there's core competencies both of us have that sometimes, like, hey, you just have to stay in your lane where you're really good at. I'm mostly focused on the or overseeing our growth side of the organization, which is like mostly sales driven, marketing driven strategies that help our company to grow or providing strategy for our clients, a growth strategy as well, right? That's where my core competency is. Whereas he's more of an operational and process and system driven guy who really oversees that side of the business, providing a lot of direction for technology and things of that nature that we built internally. So we're a tech enabled service company. So we have our own proprietary tools that we built to help improve our processes. Even now with AI, we've built a lot of different component of our business processes that can be either streamlined or automated or eliminated altogether by using those. So he for kind of spearheads it. When I talked about in the early days, we built our own technology product. That was also something that he just took a bold step and say, "Hey, we're going to go build this product." So whereas I was a little bit more hesitant to go invest in technology and building SaaS product because that wasn't our core competency and we didn't feel like we would do great at it. So just knowing what your skill sets are and kind of gravitating toward it. And then oftentimes when you have disagreements, maybe have a third party in the middle kind of try to resolve those. I mean, it's inevitable. You're always going to have, one person is always going to have a strong opinion about one thing and the other person is the opposite spectrum. So you just need to know that. We both know what our core skills are and we try to stay in those lanes, which avoids a lot of the conflicts oftentimes come up from, working with your sibling.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, like, even if you're not sibling, like, that always have to be with the partners. I mean, I have a partner as well. That's something that you guys have to actually figure it out and then stay in your boundaries and then do work together and to have a better synergy. But yeah, I mean, like, I know with the brothers, it's not like you can turn off and then just be family again. I don't know if you do it well or not.
Yeah, so he decided to move to Florida, so that made a little bit more of a distance in terms of physical, and he runs a team out there in Florida. So that also meant like we're not always butting against each other. Yes, when we were actually in Chicago together in one office, there's always going to be a lot more time spent together interacting, and oftentimes there's more chance of getting conflicts. Now, a lot of that discussion is, we have regular standing meetings and we just bring up issues and try to solve those things as
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah, but that's great. I mean, like, congrats again for 20 years because, like, that's an accomplishment.
Appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, oftentimes people, right? Like I have someone that I've just been kind of like mentoring who's in the early stage of a business and extremely disappointed in the progress he's seen with the business. So I was kind of telling him that I said, "Hey, there's no business where it's just an overnight success, and you're gonna have to try, fail, iterate so many times before you try to find something that actually sticks." So you, in the early days, you got to find how to get customers, how to serve customers, how to make them happy. Meanwhile, trying to also iterate on your product and also maybe get some additional support. So those are entrepreneurial lessons that you kind of have to go through and learn or be an apprentice at some company and learn some of those early on and then be able to go immediately apply it as you start your own.
Yeah,
So yeah,
totally
so
agree.
that's my advice for anybody who's just trying to get into entrepreneurship. Don't just follow some Instagram advice of starting a AI one man AI company and just sitting on millions after launching your AI product.
Yeah, there's a lot that's going on behind that people don't see. That's really what really makes it successful over the course of years.
100%.
Yeah. This is my favorite question, and this
Mhm.
lead to like some of the great insights that you gave. What would you say the one skill that is absolutely essential for business owners, leaders, or entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I would say problem solving because Everything in entrepreneurship is problem solving, and you want to be a problem solver. You also want to raise up a lot of leaders within your organizations that have that skill. Because what makes a good entrepreneur is someone who identifies there's a problem in the market that need to be solved, and they found some creative ways to solve it, and they're able to exchange that problem solving skill for some exchange for money. And if you do that consistently, then you have a business, right? Like that's at the end of the day, an entrepreneur is. But if you can, right, you have to be able to recognize issues and quickly see what are the options. I don't know if you follow Dan Martell. I love his. I think he called it 3-2-1. I think is the rule. I think he uses. If you have one problem, I think it's 1-3-1. I think I can't remember the exact way he mentions it, but you have one problem, come up with three solutions and decide which one is the solution that you're going to choose and go forward with, right? So like that's something he uses to encourage his leadership to always be thinking of problem solving. That I think is the number one skill, because if you think about any business challenge, right, whether that's sales, marketing, operations, finance, raising capital, whatever, all those things, those are all challenges that you got to figure out how do you solve it. And then if you can kind of come up with systems and process on how you normally approach that problem, then you can kind of crystallize it and train your team on how to go solve it. So when I talked about awareness as a challenge, we saw that as a challenge. And then that led us to building our own framework. We call our growth formula framework. That framework has really systematized methodology on what you do and which lever of that framework would you pull based on the maturity level of a company that you're trying to help, right? So we were able to see a common problem. We saw there's a unique way to solve this problem across any industries. It doesn't matter. But we picked B2B organizations as the core market to go after. And then we saw there are several levers that you can pull to help them grow, but it all comes down to the maturity level of that company. So if the company, for example, you're in the business of building websites and you build websites for different type of industries and organizations, right? Some companies have a really nice website, but with no traffic, no conversions, nothing, right? They probably have a pretty website. That is a completely different maturity level to a company that is established, has tremendous amount of traffic to the websites for both the branded search and non-branded searches, right? So if they have a good branded search traffic, which tells me that the company has been around, people know them, they are well recognized in the market, people are just coming to them just by searching their brand name. But if they also drive traffic for their core products, core services, core categories, that tells us that they have created enough content to drive traffic for those side of the business. So if you know those two things are happening, they're on a completely different maturity level. And I can focus on different levers to see, okay, if they are already getting traffic, what can I do to increase conversion on this side? How can I turn more of those people into booked appointments or inquiries? And how do I move those people further down the sales process to generate more revenue? So knowing those things would help me look at my framework and see which of these levers are more appropriate for this company at this stage of their growth so that I can help improve their performance much rapidly. So those are kind of things that, from a problem solving skill, right, that actually will become extremely useful. And again, that becomes sometimes the product that you end up offering to your customers.
I mean, this is from your experience and for recommendations. How would you help improve? I mean, I'm sure there are thousands different ways to do it. How would you,
Mhm.
like, what would be the one thing that you would recommend people who are trying to improve their solving skills?
Yeah, scenario based is the best way to do it. So I think if you look at pilots, they go thousands of hours of like those practice air
Mhm.
flying, right? And they
Years,
have different scenarios. They're losing altitude, and then what happens if you lose altitude? You lost one engine. How do you react in that? Whatever all those different scenarios. So we usually use scenario based training in our organization. We tell, okay, a company come to us. They have a website that was built on WordPress, and they just recently got acquired by another company. They're going through a rebranding and changing it. What should we do? How do we look at the value of the brand equity that they already had? How do we try to eliminate the complete loss of all the traffic they built? So think of scenarios that you can come up with to ask your team to think systematically to solve for a business challenge before they ever come across that, right? So scenario based training is one way to do it. In sales is usually like role plays. So you might say, hey, here's a prospect that's coming to you. And these are the kind of the problems that they're trying to solve. What kind of questions would you ask to uncover that problem so that you can be more informed about their need and then come up with the solutions you recommend. So that's how we have done it in our organizations. I'm sure there are probably other ways, and people read case studies to find common issues that people, companies of different size or different types that have gone through and how they solved it. But if you can think of different scenarios, especially if you've been in business long enough, you've kind of seen a lot of different cases. You turn those into story problems and you give it to your team and say, "Hey, how would you go solve it? And what would you do different about it?" And then you can also talk about what you've tried and what worked and what didn't work. So then
Hmm.
that also could be something you will never repeat again, right? So if you know, hey, that approach didn't work in the past, so let's not waste our time trying to do something that won't work.
Yeah, that's actually a very practical and an effective way to learn.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, and avoid mistakes, right? Like I think a lot of times people say, "Oh, well, let them make mistakes." But yeah, you could make mistakes, but it can also put that person much further ahead if you given them enough tools to identify what could go wrong if they tried something different. And sometimes you do run into even with those sort of training, you still make mistakes because sometimes people have to kind of do it themselves
Yeah.
to learn the hard way not to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So where can people learn more about you and about your company and your work?
Yeah, OneIMS is obviously one place, OneIMS.com. And we have a free resource. If you go to oneims.com/grow, we have an assessment that people can take. It's about 33 questions. It takes them through a series of questions to do a self-assessment on where they are as an organization, what are the obstacles that are standing in the way of their growth. So I would encourage people to go to oneims.com/grow and take that assessment, or just look me up on LinkedIn. I love it if you follow me. I do put out a lot of content around sales, marketing, and technology. So that's kind of what where two places you might be able to find.
That's awesome. Well, Sam, thanks for your time again. And anything to add before we depart?
No, I think those are kind of my life lessons from the last 20 years of being an entrepreneur.
Perfect. All right. Thanks again.
Appreciate it. Yeah.